I was charged an extra 1.65%. It's pretty weird. And I've looked back and I found other orders of mine that have that fee on it. I have no idea why eBay does this. Welcome back to my weekly show where I talk about the ups and downs of selling on eBay. Let's jump into a few viewer questions. I got 2 questions on these Mad magazine sale that I had last week. Upper Annie asks, can you share your rationale for listing the Mad magazines the way that you did? I would have been tempted to list them as an auction or maybe buy it now separately or buy it now in smaller bundles. Also, Paul asks, I once sold 25 college pennants and made 2 mistakes selling them as a lot and using the auction format. If I had to do it over, I would have sold them one at a time. Searching for sold 1957 Mad magazine comps, they go for between 10 and 60. The trade-off is that it takes longer to list and photograph and ship individual magazines. I'm thinking your buyer may well have been a reseller who is planning to flip them for a profit. Would be interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah, so thanks for the questions. Both really good questions. I'll go through my thought process on this listing that I had. And so for your context, if you didn't see last week's video, my number 1 sale of the week was this lot of 20 Mad magazines that I bought for $1 a piece at a garage sale, and they sold for $184.85. My net return was $128 even on that. And so my rationale for this, usually what I do when I get a lot of things like this, like many items like this in a bundle, is one, the first thing I'll check is, do I have any really good ones? And so what I do is I'll search for individual Mad magazines in eBay. I'll filter by sold, and I'll sort by sold for the highest on top. And so I look through and I see, do I have any issues that are worth a lot of money? And so I did this recently with another lot of magazines that I had, which is these Time magazines. I ended up having this one right here. Super crazy. This King Ibn Saud, Saudi Arabia from 1945. This one magazine went for $356.99. And so that was my first step on these Mad magazines was, one, do I have a very expensive, valuable one? Turns out I didn't. The highest value that any individual one had was, I believed, around $20. And so I decided then, like, okay, it's probably not going to make sense to break this up into individuals. I also considered doing an auction because there's kind of 3 conditions that need to be met for you to do an auction. One, the supply has to be low, the demand has to be high, and the market value has to be unknown. And this one fits that pretty well. The supply was kind of high, medium, whatever. The demand, though, was high because people like buying Mad magazines, and especially older vintage ones. I had some from the 1950s, which aren't as common. So the supply was low, the demand was high. And then it also did have an unknown market value. I wasn't exactly sure how much these were. I knew that at the most, one of them was worth $20. Everything else was worth less than $20. I had 20 of them, so they definitely weren't worth more than $400. So I did some comp research, and I found some other bundles that had sold that were from a similar date range and a similar number of magazines in the bundle. And so I started to get a pretty good idea of the actual market value. So I ended up pricing it as a buy it now on what I thought was the high side of that, right around $200, including shipping, and let it sit there for a while. And I ended up getting a sale. And so that was my thought process there, was first, make sure you don't have one that's super valuable. If you do, take any of the super valuable ones, set them aside and sell those separately, and then lot the rest together as a bundle. And it just turned out that none of them were super valuable, but they all were decently valuable. And I sold 19 of them for close to $200. Good questions though. Thank you. All right, let's take a look at my sales for the week, and I'll be answering other viewer questions sprinkled throughout these top 10 sales. So stick around if you want to hear those. Also, if you have questions for me, feel free to leave them down below and I'll answer them in next week's video. Looking at my sales over the last 7 days, I've got an 801% ROI and a 44% net profit margin. I sold just over $900 in gross income with a net income over the last 7 days of $490, which is not bad. That's about average for me, but you'll be surprised that I had this much gross income for the week, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. You may be thinking also, wow, Justin, you only made $490 this week. How do you survive on that? How do you feed your family? And the answer to that is I don't. This is a part-time thing for me. I do it on the side. I take the money that I make on eBay and I use it for all sorts of stuff. I go on vacations with my family. I use it for home improvement things. Like I'm sitting in my basement right now. That's the background you can see here. All of this basement remodel was done entirely with eBay money. So that's how I spend my eBay money. It is just a side hustle for me. That's why I like doing this channel, so I can teach you how to make money like this on eBay on the side. If you have a full-time job, it's totally possible to be spending only 10, 15 hours a week even and make this kind of income. And so it's definitely doable, and that's kind of what my channel is all about. But that $900 of gross income and $490 of net income is interesting because take a look at this. You'll see here I had no new listings over the last 7 days. That's right, I listed nothing, zero over the last week. I wasn't on vacation. This was not vacation mode. I did go out sourcing several times, but every single time I went out, I did not buy anything. I just couldn't find anything that was worth buying. That's something you'll run into as well, especially if you're just getting started and you increase your knowledge of what's valuable over time. You have a little bit more of a discerning eye for what you want to buy, and you end up passing on a lot of stuff that you may otherwise would have bought long ago, like back when you started. That's definitely the case for me. I went to 3 or 4 thrift stores. I went to garage sales on Wednesday and Friday. I bought nothing, absolutely nothing this week, so no new inventory coming in, and I did 0 listings. And I went out of town this weekend. I didn't use vacation mode, but typically I go to garage sales on Saturday. Couldn't do that because I was out of town, and a lot of my listing gets done on the weekend as well. Couldn't do that. But look at that, 28 sales despite not listing anything. And so that's very rare for me. What that tells me, though, if I would have been listing stuff, if I would have been finding new good inventory, I would have had a huge week, obviously, because I sold 28 things without listing anything new. So very, very interesting. My average time to sell on this stuff was 6 months, and the total amount I spent on new inventory obviously was $0. Let's jump into the top 10 sales. Coming in at number 10 is this Disney doll here. This is from the Descendants. I bought this in a bunch of other dolls at a garage sale. They were $2 a piece. Some of them were Monster High. Some of them were mixed. I didn't know what they were. This one ended up being a Descendants doll. I sold it with another Descendants doll. You can see that one also sold in this same order. But this sold for $24.99 and free shipping. I got a net return of $16.27. My ROI on that was 814% with a 65% net profit margin. Good tip on identifying these is to use Google Lens. That's an app on the phone. You just point your camera at it and do a visual search through Google Lens, and it will return a bunch of results that tell you exactly what the doll is. That's what I used to find out what this one was. Coming in at number 9 is this vintage Dooney & Burke purse. My wife bought this at a garage sale about 3 weeks ago. It looks like it took 20 days to sell. We paid $10 for it, I think. Yeah, $10, which is a little bit high. It's kind of hard to price these things. I'm not really sure what constitutes a high-value Dooney & Burke purse and what is not a high-value one. I know there are some that are made in the US, I believe. Some are made in China. This one was made in China, so it was still vintage, but it was not a United States-made vintage. But we just weren't really sure exactly how much it was worth. We decided to take the gamble at $10, and we did okay on it. It sold for $39.73 in total. That's $29.74 plus $9.99 in shipping. Our net return for the 9th best flip was $16.27. Only 163% ROI. We were hoping that it was going to be worth more like $60 or $70, but it wasn't one of those that was worth that. But let me know in the comments below if you know what makes a good Dooney & Burke purse versus a not as good one like this one. I'd love to know. All right, Upscale asks, Justin, I heard you say several times not to worry too much about negative feedback, but I'd love to hear more on why. So yeah, I say this a lot. Negative feedback doesn't really matter that much for a couple of reasons. First, if you're just starting to sell on eBay, if you just know anything about eBay, especially if you've sold here and there over the years, you sort of think in your head that negative feedback is bad, that you have to do whatever you can to not get negative feedback. And the truth is, getting negative feedback used to matter more. It just matters less these days. And here's the thing is if you sell enough on eBay, you're going to get negative feedback. There's no way to avoid it. And so there's going to be buyers out there who are just impossible to please. And you really don't want to be bending over backwards for every buyer out there, because there's just some buyers out there that will just be demanding and want everything, and they'll still give you negative feedback even if you give them everything. And so when I say negative feedback doesn't really matter, that's what I mean. I mean, don't really sweat it. I want you to be a good seller. I want you to describe your items well. I want you to take really good photographs. I want you to ship on time. I want you to make sure you don't break stuff. I want you to be friendly in your communications with your buyers. As long as you do that, you're totally fine. A few negatives here and there are just not going to kill your business. I sit at like a 99.5%. I don't even bother trying to get negative feedback removed, even if they probably could be removed. It's just not worth my time. It just does not matter anymore. And so be a good seller. Don't let buyers walk all over you. Expect that at some point, if you sell enough, you're going to get negative feedback, and just try not to get too anxious about getting a negative feedback, because it's going to happen at some point and it's not going to kill your business. So you might as well just not worry about it. That's what I mean. Coming in at number 8 is this Camelback Hydrate or Die water bottle. I bought a bunch of these about a year ago at a garage sale, all brand new. They all had this Hydrate or Die logo on them, and I've just been slowly selling them over the last 12 months. Looks like I've got 6 total of these. I've sold 4 of them. I've got 2 left. This one sold for $27.99 with free shipping. The net return was $17.31 for the 8th best flip. But you can see here, I've sold a bunch of them over the last 12 months or so. I also have a bunch of different ones that are in different sizes and different styles of screw-on caps. I think I bought maybe 25 to 30 of them in total and paid about $2 a piece. Coming in at number 7 is this Masters Golf jacket. This is for women, a women's jacket, sold for $34.50. I got it at a garage sale for $5. I got a net return of $18.17 and a 363% ROI. It did take 12 months to sell. I'm not sure why this took so long to sell. It's really interesting, but glad to get it out the door. Masters is a really good brand to look out for. I'm not a huge golf fan, but I do know to look for that Masters logo. It's typically going to be a pretty good buy if you find something, whether it's a shirt or a hat. I've found vintage Masters t-shirts that go for a lot of money, jackets like this, men's jackets do really well, so definitely pick it up if you see it and it's priced well. All right, Mark asks, hey Justin, just started doing eBay sales a few weeks ago. I got burned on shipping in my first 2 sales, so I picked up a scale. Question is, do you think I should be listing and then packaging my items before I get them sold? I have a sticker with a numbering system on each package, that way I know what it is. It's not a bad idea for a new seller who's learning the ropes of how to sell on eBay and how to ship to pack everything after you list it so that you can put those exact dimensions and weights in on your calculated shipping. Not a bad idea, and I would definitely recommend it, especially for new sellers. However, as you start to get more inventory and sell more things, slow your process down. And so if you have to do that for every single thing that you list, the amount of things that you're going to be able to list at one given time is going to decrease significantly. And so eBay is all about new listings. I think it's one of the most important things to be listing as much as you possibly can. And by having to prepackage everything beforehand, it just takes a lot more time and you're going to list a lot less than you would be if you weren't packaging it as a part of the listing process. Coming in at number 6 is this vintage Chatham fiber woven blankets. I bought this at a private pick that I did at someone's estate, and I ended up buying a lot of stuff like this. This took 12 months to sell, just over a year, but this was brand new in the packaging, had never been used. It was a very particular style of blanket that I just knew someone was going to want. I bought all sorts of other blankets like this at the exact same place. This is probably one of the last ones that I have, but it did sell for $24.99 with $17.20 shipping on top. My net return on it was $19.98 for the 6th best flip of the week. Coming in at number 5 are these My Slippers brand women's slip-on slippers. I just said slippers a lot. This is the same brand from the guy that makes the pillows. This sold for $41.98, just under 2 weeks, 13 days to sell, $34.99 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return on it was $22.54. This is one of the rare times I did look something up at a garage sale. They were priced at $5, but I still wasn't sure. Are these things going to be worth $10? Are they going to be worth $100? I really wasn't sure. Turns out they were worth about $40, and I knew the sell-through rate was pretty decent. The size was good, so I pulled the trigger on it and ended up selling in 13 days with a net return of $22.54. These were brand new, by the way, had never been used. All right, Jules asks, hi Justin, thank you for the great info. I learned so much from your channel. Thank you. I've been reselling for 30 days and I just got my first return on a scratched vinyl record. I specifically noted it in the listing, including the photos of the scratches. I currently have no returns listed for my store, but I paid and accepted the return anyway. If I receive the item back in the same condition, should I give a partial refund for potential sales loss? I would appreciate your advice. Yeah, so a couple things going on here. First of all, I used to sell vinyl records on eBay. I just don't anymore. I'm not an expert on how to grade vinyl records, and I have found that people who buy vinyl records can be very, very particular about the grading and the descriptions of vinyl records. And if I don't know how to accurately describe the condition in a way that most vinyl record buyers are going to know and appreciate, then I started to get returns like this. And so I just said, I don't want to do that anymore. I just don't really buy vinyl records anymore unless they're really, really good or if they're sealed. And the second thing here, you mentioned a very good point, is, you don't even accept returns on your store, yet you're accepting one for this. And you probably would have been forced to accept a return on this anyway, even if you have no returns. That's why I recommend you offer returns on eBay, is because even if you say no returns, it just doesn't matter. A buyer can return something if they want to. All they have to do is say the item was not as described, and then they can return it and you have to pay for the shipping back. So you might as well offer a return policy because most buyers expect them anyway. You're turning away a lot of prospective buyers by seeing a label on there that says no returns. And so I recommend you accept returns on everything, just because on eBay, people can return anything if they want, even if you don't accept returns. Your last question here is that if I receive the item back in the same condition, should I give a partial refund for potential sales lost? I don't think this is a scenario where I would offer a partial refund. Technically, the buyer did not do anything wrong here. They're saying that it's not as described. And again, describing anything is a subjective thing. The way I describe something may be different than the way someone else describes something. And when you're trying to sell something that has a very specific rubric for how the condition should be described, like vinyl records, there's certain expectations that come with that. And so this vinyl record buyer may have seen the scratch in the photos, but gotten it and inspected it and said that, oh, it should have been described as a different type of scratch than this scratch, or the condition was worse than the way the words that you used in the listing. So it's just tough to tell. Like, I have no idea, but I don't think a partial refund is going to be something you want to do in this situation. The only time I use a partial refund is if I sell something that's in brand new condition and they return it in used condition. Then I give a partial refund. But that's not the case here. It's a subjective condition matter, and it's just a part of doing business on eBay. Eat the costs, consider it a small donation to the eBay Learning University. Move on to the next sale. Try not to let it get you down. Coming in at number 4 is this really cool vintage Home Alone, the movie poster. I'll zoom in on that so you can take a look at it. This was a big promotional poster from the movie from Home Alone back in the 90s, 1990 to be specific. I bought it at an estate sale, just rolled up in the corner for $1.50, and it sold in 2 months for $39.98. That's $24.99 plus $14.99 in shipping. I got a net return for the fourth best flip of $23.07. That has a 1,500% ROI. Just a really cool piece of history. I actually thought it was going to be worth more than just $40. Turns out there was quite a few of them on eBay, and so they're not as rare as you would think. Coming in at number 3 is this Cuisinart lid for a food processor. Y'all know I like buying food processors and parting them out, and other vintage kitchen items like this and parting them out. Another good example where if I would have sold this thing as a whole complete working unit, which the one I bought was a complete and working unit for $3, it would have sold for maybe $50 total, but just parting this out into many different pieces, it's going to sell for a lot more money. It's usually going to sell quicker as well. So this one took 22 days. It sold for $44.98. That's $34.99 plus $10 in shipping. The net return on it was $27.35. I have a dollar cost of goods in that because, again, this was parted out into 3 or 4 different other pieces. And so really great idea to do that. You're going to make more money often that way. And you're also going to keep more things out of the landfill by allowing other people to not have to completely throw their food processors away and just buy a replacement part for it. But it's really easy to tell whether or not you want to part something out. One, you just look up the cost, the sold prices for what the full working unit goes for, and the sell-through rate, and check all that. And then just do a search for the same model number with the word replacement after that. And you'll start to see how other sellers are breaking it into individual listings. You can start to get an idea of how much all of that is going to add up. And almost always the parted out option is going to be worth more money to you than by selling it as a whole unit. And so I almost always do that with pieces like this. Valentine asks, why does eBay charge an international fee even if I sold an item within the United States and is shipped to a house within the US with a US address? Also, I chose no international shipping. eBay told me I have to know who is going to buy my product and know their home address beforehand. This doesn't make any sense to me. I'm trying to understand. Can anyone explain this to me? So yeah, this is a really good question. I've recently run across this myself, and I'll tell you exactly how. I was selling these Tesla Model Y interior carpet floor mats, and I noticed when I looked at my fees in Flipwise that it said an international fee of $1.16. And I thought, wait a second, I shipped this to like Miami. I didn't ship it anywhere internationally. Why am I being charged an international fee? I thought it was a bug in Flipwise at first, so I started digging around. I went into the eBay order ID. I went into the order details here, and I viewed many clicks later, was able to get to this transaction detail screen, and it said here, international fee charged because the buyer's registered address is in the Dominican Republic. I was charged an extra 1.65% on a sale for an international fee. And so it turns out this international fee was totally legit. And so there is a policy on eBay, I had to look it up, is you get charged an international fee not of course, if you sell something internationally, but you also get charged an international fee even if the buyer is from another country, but you're shipping it to the US. And so in this case, my buyer had an address in the Dominican Republic, but they had it shipped to a address in Miami. And so I got charged this international fee. Now, this person was probably either a drop shipper, meaning they were just buying it for someone else and having it delivered, or there was like a mail forwarding scenario where they bought it through some mail forwarder. I sent it to Miami, and then from Miami, they're going to send it off to the end buyer. But isn't that super weird? I have no idea why eBay does this. My only thing I can think of is that maybe the payment processing that they have to do for international customers like that comes with a fee, and they're passing that on to me as a seller. But look, it says, you can see it right here. It says, if your eBay registered address is in an eBay global country, eBay charges an international fee if the delivery address for the item is outside your registered country, which makes sense. If I was sending it to another country, yeah, sure. Or if the buyer's registered address is outside your registered address country, regardless of the delivery address for the item. So eBay will charge you an international fee even if you don't sell something internationally, if the buyer is in another country. And so it's pretty weird. And I've looked back and I found other orders of mine that have that international fee on it. It's super weird. And so a lot of the times it's been drop shippers where somebody in South Korea is drop shipping an item on eBay to somebody in North Dakota, and I have to pay an international fee. It's pretty crazy. Coming in at number 2 is this Mackenzie Childs colander. So my wife bought this at a Savers. She paid $4 for it. It took a month to sell for $54.98. That's $44.99 plus $9.99 in shipping. This thing is crazy. The colander is very small. I'd say it's like 5 inches total across. But I knew nothing about this brand, Mackenzie Childs. All my wife, she got excited when she saw it, and she said, oh, rich people collect this stuff. And she is absolutely right. Take a look at all of these other items on eBay that have sold recently from the same brand. All this stuff I probably would have just passed on if I saw it sitting at a garage sale or at a thrift store. But luckily my wife knows the brand and knows to keep an eye out for it. It's just some crazy prices. And for a tiny colander, we made $35.70 a net return on that, an ROI of 893%. So Mackenzie Childs, keep an eye out for that brand. That leaves us with number 1 here, these Fry men's boots. I got these at an estate sale for only $5, if you can believe that. These are big black motorcycle boots made in the USA. Fry is an excellent brand. I'll pop the logo up on the screen there so you can see it. Anytime you see that logo on a pair of boots, definitely pick them up, especially if they're only $5. Took 2 months to sell, but it went for $194.98. That's $179 plus $15 in shipping for a net return, and the best flip of the week of $156.25. That's over a 3,000% ROI because of that purchase price at a estate sale is only $5. Just super crazy, really great shape. I put some of that leather cleaner on it just to make them look fresh and nice, and really great to get these out the door. An exciting sale for $156 net return. Pretty excellent. Let's take a look at some of the worst sales of the week. Looks like I sold a Master Lock here, only made 87 cents on the sale. Yeah, I sold it for $10 free shipping. I got a bunch of these. I'm just trying to get them out. Looks like I sold a remote, made 89 cents on some Clark's shoes that I bought for $6 and took a year to sell that I made $2.05 on. Yeah, so they just all really cannot be winners. Got some Build-A-Bear that sold for $17 and I made $4.65. Here's some Mountain Hardwear pants. That's surprising. I paid $7.50 for them and got about 100% net return on them. So they can't all be winners. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you missed last week's episode, click here to watch it now. If you like these videos, I do them every week, so hit that subscribe button and join me next Monday. Thanks and see you soon.